Ulic Qel-Droma was a powerful and tragic figure within the ancient Jedi Order, a man whose journey from hero to dark side servant left an indelible mark on the galaxy. Born on the planet Alderaan centuries before the events of the Clone Wars, Ulic was initially recognized for his remarkable potential as a Jedi Knight, showcasing bravery, strength, and an unyielding sense of justice that set him apart from others. He trained under Master Arca Jeth, one of the most respected Jedi Masters of his time, alongside his brother Ulic Qel-Droma and their friend Tat Donetta. Together, the three of them formed a close-knit bond, a connection that would serve as both a source of strength and, ultimately, a cause of great tragedy in Ulic's life. From his early days, Ulic embodied the ideals of the Jedi Order, displaying a fierce dedication to protecting the innocent and upholding peace across the galaxy. His determination, however, was often underscored by a passion that bordered on recklessness, a trait that foreshadowed his eventual fall. The Jedi Order of Ulic's era, centuries before the establishment of the Republic structure seen in later times, was a more decentralized organization, with Jedi acting independently or in small groups under the guidance of individual masters. Ulic and his companions operated with great autonomy, responding to crises and conflicts throughout the galaxy as they emerged. One of the pivotal moments in Ulic's life was his involvement in the Beast Wars on the planet Onderon. Onderon was a world plagued by a long-standing conflict between the city-dwelling inhabitants of the capital, Iziz, and the beast-riding tribes who lived in the wilderness. Master Arca Jeth assigned Ulic Qel and Tat to bring peace to this fractured world, hoping that their efforts would end the bloodshed and bring Onderon back into harmony. Ulic, driven by his idealism and unshakable belief in justice, threw himself into the mission. However, the complexities of Onderon's politics and the legacy of the dark side that lingered on the planet revealed a darkness that lay hidden beneath the surface. The Beast Wars on Onderon introduced Ulic to the legacy of Freedon Nad, a former Jedi turned Sith Lord whose spirit continued to influence the planet and its rulers long after his death. Freedon Nad's dark teachings had corrupted the royal family, turning them into powerful dark side wielders who clung to Nad's teachings, seeking to expand their power. Despite Ulic's best efforts, he found himself increasingly challenged by the dark side's insidious influence on Onderon. While he succeeded in helping to bring about a temporary peace, the encounter left an impact on him, exposing him to the seductive nature of power and the allure of darkness, a seed that would later grow and bear bitter fruit. The galaxy, however, was on the verge of a much greater conflict that would forever alter the lives of Ulic and his companions. It was during this period that the dark side's influence surged across the galaxy, manifesting through the machinations of a group of darksiders known as the Krath. The Krath were a dark side cult founded by two aristocrats from the Empress Teta system, Fateful and Vima Sunrider. These cousins, intoxicated by the ancient Sith teachings, seized control of their home system and began expanding their influence through dark rituals and acts of terror, seeking to spread fear and darkness across the galaxy. The Krath's rise marked the beginning of a violent conflict, drawing the Jedi Order into a war that would test their resolve and force them to confront the dark side in ways they had never anticipated. When the Krath unleashed their dark powers, the Jedi Council, alarmed by the resurgence of Sith ideology, organized a summit to determine how to address this growing threat. Ulic, by then a respected Jedi Knight, attended the summit and urged decisive action against the Krath. He was deeply disturbed by the atrocities committed by the cult and felt a personal obligation to stop them, believing that only by confronting the dark side directly could the Jedi hope to eradicate its influence. Despite warnings from the Council and his fellow Jedi, Ulic proposed an audacious plan to infiltrate the Krath from within, learn their secrets, and destroy them from the inside. Many Jedi, including his brother Kay and his friend Tat Donetta, were wary of this strategy, fearing that such close proximity to the dark side would corrupt him. Ulic, however, was confident in his ability to resist its temptations, driven by his belief that his inner strength and dedication to the light would be enough to protect him. The decision to infiltrate the Krath marked a critical turning point in Ulic's life. Under the guise of joining the cult, Ulic traveled to the Empress Teta system, where he gradually gained the trust of Fateful and Vima Sunrider. At first, he was horrified by their cruelty and the depth of their corruption, but his determination to destroy them kept him moving forward. However, the longer he remained among them, the more the dark side began to seep into his heart, eroding the convictions that had once defined him. The Krath recognized Ulic's potential and saw in him a powerful ally, someone who could elevate their own power and extend the reach of the dark side. Slowly, they manipulated him, sowing doubt and confusion in his mind until the lines between light and darkness began to blur. Ulic's journey into darkness was further complicated by his encounters with Vima Sunrider, who used her dark charms and manipulative nature to seduce him, drawing him deeper into the fold of the Krath. Vima, a powerful dark side sorceress, saw Ulic as a means to strengthen her own position within the Krath hierarchy. She played on his insecurities and fears, fueling his anger and resentment toward the Jedi who had warned him against this mission. Ulic, already struggling with the burden of his mission, found himself increasingly isolated from the Jedi Order and his former companions. The sense of isolation, combined with the relentless pull of the dark side, weakened his resolve, and before long, Ulic found himself slipping further away from the ideals he had once cherished. As Ulic became more entangled in the dark web of the Krath, he was forced to confront the cost of his choices. His interactions with the dark side became increasingly consuming, clouding his judgment and igniting a fierce internal struggle. At moments, he could sense the light within himself trying to break through, a distant memory of the man he had once been. But each time, the darkness surrounding him seemed to grow stronger, its whispers more seductive, until the path back to the light appeared impossible. Ulic's descent was not marked by a single moment of surrender, but rather a gradual erosion of his beliefs and values, the steady dismantling of his identity as a Jedi. While Ulic's infiltration of the Krath had initially been motivated by a desire to protect the galaxy from their evil, he began to lose sight of that mission as his hatred and anger grew. The atrocities he witnessed and the loss of friends in battle hardened him, twisting his sense of justice into a desire for vengeance. As Ulic delved deeper into the Krath, his transformation continued. His exposure to the dark side began to alter his personality and his sense of self. The anger and frustration he felt towards the Jedi Council, who had questioned his mission, became a source of resentment. His isolation from the Order grew, as did his feeling of betrayal by those he once trusted. This resentment festered, turning his once noble intentions into a dangerous obsession with defeating the Krath, even if it meant sacrificing everything he had believed in. Ulic's connection to the dark side was solidified in a pivotal encounter with Exar Kun, a former Jedi who had also fallen to the dark side and was seeking ancient Sith knowledge. Unlike Ulic, whose initial descent was marked by a slow, reluctant slide into darkness, Exar Kun had fully embraced the teachings of the Sith and was actively pursuing its powers. The two crossed paths during one of the Krath's rituals, and the resulting confrontation forced both men to recognize the immense power that lay within each other. In a moment that would alter galactic history, the spirit of the ancient Sith Lord Marka Ragnos appeared and declared Ulic and Exar Kun as the new Dark Lords of the Sith. Exar Kun was named the Dark Lord, and Ulic became his apprentice, a title that bound him to the Sith in a way that even he could not fully comprehend. This dark alliance between Ulic and Exar Kun was the beginning of a Sith resurgence that would plunge the galaxy into chaos. Together, they sought to expand their influence, establishing a network of Sith followers and wreaking havoc on the Jedi Order. Ulic, now entirely under the sway of the dark side, participated in countless atrocities, betraying the ideals he had once sworn to protect. His actions shocked his former friends and allies, particularly his brother Kay and his old companion Tat Danita, who watched in horror as the man they had once known became a ruthless enforcer of Sith terror. The devastation wrought by Ulic and Exar Kun during this period was immense. Together, they launched attacks across the galaxy, striking at the Republic and the Jedi alike. Ulic's cunning and tactical skills, which had once been used to protect the innocent, were now employed to spread fear and destruction. He led invasions on planets, ruthlessly crushing any resistance he encountered. His mastery of both the lightsaber and the dark side made him a formidable adversary, and he became known for his brutal efficiency and unrelenting aggression. His fall from grace was now complete, and the name Ulic Qel-Droma became synonymous with terror. Despite the darkness that had consumed him, there were moments when Ulic's old self resurfaced, fragments of the Jedi he had once been. These fleeting memories, however, only served to deepen his inner turmoil. He was haunted by the ghosts of his past, by memories of his brother Kay, Tat Donetta, and Master Arkajeth, all of whom had believed in him and had tried to guide him along the path of the Jedi. The conflict within him was visible at times, and those closest to him could see that the man behind the Sith facade was still struggling, trapped between the light and the darkness. Yet, his pride and his anger kept him bound to the path he had chosen, unable to turn back, even as he recognized the destruction he was causing. The tragedy of Ulic's journey reached its peak in a confrontation with his brother Kay. Kay, despite witnessing Ulic's descent, never gave up hope that he could save his brother and bring him back to the light. In a desperate attempt to reach Ulic, Kay challenged him to a duel, hoping that a confrontation would allow Ulic to confront his actions and rediscover the compassion and honor he had once embodied. But the dark side had a firm hold on Ulic, and in a moment of blind rage, he struck down his brother. As Kay lay dying, his final words were those of forgiveness, a final, heartbreaking attempt to save Ulic even as he breathed his last. It was in this moment of loss that Ulic finally began to understand the depths of his fall. Kay's death shattered the illusions he had built around himself, and the weight of his choices crashed down on him with an unbearable force. The realization of what he had become, of the pain and destruction he had inflicted upon those he loved, tore through him. In his grief and horror, he was left broken, a shadow of the warrior he had once been. The darkness that had consumed him dissipated in the face of his overwhelming remorse, and Ulic found himself empty, his soul scarred beyond repair. At this moment, Ulic was confronted by Vima Sunrider, a powerful Jedi Knight who had once considered Ulic a friend and ally. Overwhelmed by her own pain and anger, Vima unleashed a devastating Force technique on Ulic known as the Wall of Light, severing his connection to the Force entirely. This act left Ulic in a state of despair, stripped of his power and his identity. Without the Force, he was no longer the formidable warrior he had been, and the void left by its absence filled him with a sense of profound emptiness. Ulic had become a shell of his former self, a man haunted by his past and condemned to live with the memory of his fall. In the years that followed, Ulic wandered the galaxy in solitude, struggling to come to terms with the consequences of his actions. The loss of the Force was a constant reminder of his fall, a punishment he could never escape. He became a recluse, avoiding contact with others and seeking a quiet existence far from the violence and chaos he had once embraced. Ulic's exile took him to distant, desolate worlds, where he could escape the galaxy's judgment and his own haunted conscience. Though he had once been a prominent figure in the Jedi Order, his name now invoked fear and hatred. He was a broken man, stripped not only of his connection to the Force but also of any purpose or sense of belonging. Every moment was a reminder of the friends he had betrayed, the lives he had destroyed, and the ideals he had abandoned in his pursuit of power. The weight of his guilt was his constant companion, and for a time he seemed resigned to live out the rest of his days in obscurity, believing himself beyond redemption. Yet, even in his solitude, Ulic's legacy continued to resonate throughout the galaxy. Stories of his fall became legends, cautionary tales for young Jedi who were warned about the dangers of pride and the allure of the dark side. Ulic was remembered as both a hero and a villain, a tragic figure whose choices had reshaped the Jedi Order's understanding of the dark side and its dangers. Although he had vanished from the galaxy, his story lived on, serving as a reminder of the devastating consequences of turning away from the light. It was during this period of isolation that a young Jedi named Vima Sunrider sought him out. Vima was the daughter of Vima Sunrider, who had once been a close ally of Ulic and had ultimately severed his connection to the Force. Vima's decision to find Ulic was met with resistance from her mother, who feared that Ulic's influence would be harmful. However, Vima felt compelled to learn from him, convinced that there was wisdom in his experiences that she could not gain from the other Jedi. Despite his own self-loathing, Ulic reluctantly agreed to teach her, seeing in Vima a chance to pass on some of the lessons he had learned, albeit through bitter regret. As Ulic mentored Vima, he found himself slowly reconnecting with the ideals he had once held dear. Teaching her reminded him of his own early days as a Jedi, of the hope and optimism he had once carried. Vima's earnestness and her willingness to learn rekindled a spark within him, and he began to see a glimmer of redemption in the act of passing on his knowledge. Though he could no longer touch the Force, His insights into the dangers of pride and anger offered Vima a perspective that no other Jedi could provide. In his own way, Ulic tried to impart to her the importance of humility, balance, and the true meaning of being a Jedi, lessons he had learned only after his own tragic fall. Through his teachings, Ulic began to find a semblance of peace. Vima's presence reminded him that there was still good he could do, even if it could never fully atone for his past. His bond with her grew into something profound, a connection that gave him a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since Kay's death, Ulic felt a sense of redemption, a quiet hope that perhaps, in helping Vima avoid the path he had taken, he could leave a positive mark on the galaxy. However, this fragile peace was not to last. News of Ulic's whereabouts eventually spread, attracting the attention of Hagan, a bounty hunter who sought to claim the infamy associated with capturing the once feared Sith warlord. Despite Ulic's efforts to leave his past behind, his reputation continued to follow him, a shadow he could never escape. When Hagan confronted him, Ulic offered no resistance. He had made peace with his fate, understanding that he could never undo the harm he had caused, and that his life had become a testament to the dangers of the dark side. In a tragic conclusion to his journey, Ulic was struck down by Hagan. As he lay dying, Vima held him, devastated by the loss of her teacher and friend. In his final moments, Ulic experienced a profound sense of peace. Stripped of the Force and the weight of his past, he felt an acceptance that he had never known. Though his life had been marked by darkness, betrayal, and tragedy, his final act of teaching Vima offered him a measure of redemption, a chance to pass on his wisdom and, in some way, make amends. Ulic Qel-Droma's story remains one of the most tragic and complex in Jedi history. His journey from Jedi Knight to Sith Lord and, finally, to a man seeking redemption is a powerful reminder of the dangers of arrogance, ambition, and the seductive nature of the dark side. Though he fell further than most Jedi, he ultimately found a way to leave a lasting legacy of hope and warning. In his death, Ulic was finally freed from the burden of his past, and his spirit found peace, leaving behind a story that would echo throughout the ages, a testament to the struggle between light and darkness within every Jedi.